If I were to ask you, and this is answer in your head, what are the top 3 to 5 spiritual books that have had the biggest impact on your spiritual journey? Just sort of contemplate 3 to 5 of the top spiritual books that have had the most profound effect on your spiritual journey. It's a question I like to ask in classes. One of the things that I found that I just love, I found 2 things that I found so fascinating in the answers. What's interesting is I bet of the people here, most of us have read Ernest Holmes. We've probably maybe read a little Fillmore. We've read Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer. There's a lot. Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson. We probably read a lot of the same authors. And yet, when I ask this question in class, and I often ask people to bring in the 3 to 5 books that have inspired them, what absolutely amazes me, love the word amazing, is how different the books are. That even though we've read so many of the similar authors, the ones that really excite us, the ones that have really had an impact, are so unique to each of us. And what I love about that is it points to our unique journey, that we, and to me, the miracle of communities like this, where we can feel into and experience this profound oneness and connection with each other, just beyond humanity, our human self, and this deep spiritual connection, and at the exact same time, celebrate and support this incredible, unique journey. Because the books that have fed you, that have made a difference in your life, are not going to be the same books for the person to the right of you and the left of you and in front of you and behind you. Isn't that extraordinary? How abundant the universe, how everyone's voice absolutely matters, because if you have something to say, there are people who absolutely need to hear what you have to say. And it doesn't matter that if you've heard other people say the same thing, the way you're going to say it is going to be completely unique and fresh, and it's going to be needed. The other thing that I love about seeing and feeling the different books is when people, and I'm the same way, when people would talk about their books, and by the way, I invite you after service, share them. It's fun to hear what their books are and why, and during the week with your friends and your family. So it's a wonderful discussion to have. My experience is people are not just, these aren't books I just like. These are books that have powerfully impacted our souls, in some way saved us. These new ideas have saved us and brought us alive. They've changed how we show up in the world. We're not the same because we have read these books. And that's why there's this incredible vibration and emotional attachment to these books, because I am now a new person because I've read these ideas. The power of ideas is our topic for today, and we are all here because those ideas, new ideas, have animated us and carried us forward on a journey. I was looking up thoughts and ideas because, for me, ideas has a different tenor than thoughts. And one of the things that was saying was ideas is a bundle of thoughts. And I kind of like that because it feels bigger. It feels like it's patterns. Ideas is like a big pattern where a thought can be very specific and particular. For me as well, the thing that I like about ideas, and to be clear, is that for me it's not just information. Information is new stuff, new ideas that we learn, but they don't change us. The true ideas take us over. They take over our body. They take over our heart, our mind, and our soul, and they transform the way we show up in the world. That's the power of ideas, and that's what I think animates us and brings us alive day to day. It's also important for us to realize that we are all just an idea in form. That cosmic idea, that first original idea, happened with our name on it. That idea was birthed into energy, and then energy into form, and we were conceived in our mother, and we were birthed into this world. So we are, right now, you are just a physical, emotional, mental manifestation of a divine idea that happened before time began. and is continuing to unfold. That's why this teaching, Centers for Spiritual Living, is part of a greater umbrella called New Thought. And the idea is new thought, new idea is constantly being birthed. We are never stuck in where we were before. That's very important. I'm not going to spend much time on this. I think I spent too much time last week. But I just give a sense of, in the beginning, God. That's the circle. By the way, that was very hard to talk about because there's really nothing to talk about. So to come up with how to talk about non-duality, which is there, was a little challenging, but it exists. Plotinus, by the way, I forgot about him. So, and I gave different spiritual practices to connect with the non-dual self. But the non-dual self itself just is. Then from, in the beginning, God is birthed an idea. This is the divine idea. So this is often what we call God, Brahma, Jehovah, Great Spirit, Divine Mother. It's a divine idea, what we're turning to, and they often have qualities: love, peace, joy, harmony. And so just to give a really quick understanding of this symbol for those of you who don't know, so we have the divine idea. And what I also loved when I looked up idea, because we know this from looking at the chart, volition is also up here. And when I read the definition for idea, it said it has a purposeful intent. It's a desire. It's like an action-oriented as well. It wants to move forward, which I think is very true. When we feel an idea, we don't want to just stay there. We want to move forward with it. So this divine idea gets planted, what we call the law, or it's just this energy body, the subtle body, and that's what we can't see ideas. If you notice, there's no form to ideas. It's very hard when we move into that causal realm to talk about it. This is another one where it's hard to talk about the causal realm because we can't see ideas until those ideas start to become energy. And so the energy starts swirling around the idea. And from that energy, it gets birthed into form, into the density of this physical human experience. Does that make sense? And that's not just for us as individuals. This is how the cosmos was created. Before the Big Bang, there was just the I am, the infinite presence. And then it had this idea. And the idea was birthed into form, and there was a Big Bang, and form was created, and there's been a whole evolutionary process, and could go on and on. It's very exciting. I get very excited about it because it's a living right now. Right now, we're alive in ideas. You're here. Your life represents the ideas that animate your existence, the ideas that propel you into your day. There's patterns to them. If you start noticing the ideas in your life, you start noticing there's patterns to your ideas. There's patterns to the way you talk with people, the way you see people, the way you interact with the world, the way you interact with yourself, the way you interact with the divine. Those are all animated by ideas. So I wanted to talk about, for my book, because I'm speaking, one of the books that inspired me, that had a huge impact on me, was Joel Goldsmith's book, The Thunder of Silence. I had read a lot of different New Thoughts, not a lot, but I've been reading books about New Thought, knew about creating my reality. But there was still a disconnect. So remember when I was talking about last week that with Reverend Michael, there's 4 stages of consciousness. The first one is the victim stage. The world is happening to me. So because I had trauma, because my parents, because genetics, because the environment is falling apart, because my boss doesn't treat me with respect, all these things that we can start to feel like we're a victim. And sometimes we are a victim. The question is the victim consciousness becomes a way of being in the world. I have no power. The way Stephen Covey would talk about it in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is our locus of control is outside. It's out there. So we get very blaming because we blame because they have the power. So we want to shift to the next state of consciousness, which is by me. That's the empowering state. That's where we reconnect, bring the locus of control back internally, and recognize that at every moment I have choice. Every moment we are choosing. We don't recognize, when we're in the victim state, we don't realize that that's actually a choice. It's a choice to see ourselves as powerless. It doesn't feel that way, it just feels like that's the way it is. So these books that we love are books that maybe woke us up to who we really are. That's why they're so powerful. They remind us the truth that we have this divine inheritance right within us, and I can choose from that place anytime, any day that I decide to. So I'm reading Joel Goldsmith, and it's that power of choice. And one of the chapters, well, first let me just say, here's how you know you're meant to read a book. The minister, it was my first New Thought minister. I loved him. He was great, and he's the one who recommended the book to me. And I believe it was either first or second page on the book. It said, "There is no good or evil," at which point I took the book and threw it across the room. So that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That's a good sign the book is for you. So it took me a while to actually take it in. One of the things, and the reason why I want to bring it forth, because it's simple. Truth is simple. I love complexity. Anyone who knows me I love complexity. But the actual truth is simple. And what his book hammers home over and over and over is there's only one power, one presence. And he has this whole chapter just on power. And I've gone back and read it many, many times. I don't read the whole book over and over again, but I read that chapter because he looks at how human beings look at power. And then it was looking at how mental science I mentally am going to overcome my situation. I'm mentally going to overcome a material thing. And he said, but that's still power over something. Divine power isn't power over anything because there is no other power. He points to how subtly we do it, and it's such an amazing thing to become conscious of, that we are constantly fighting against something because we think there's that something to fight against. There's this idea that there's two. There's the divine power, and then there's human power. And what he is brought home to me over and over, there is no human power, that power is temporary, there's secondary causation, but the ultimate absolute power is the divine power. As Ernest Holmes said, one in God is a majority. One in this divine presence, this first cause, one in God, one in that divine idea is a majority. That doesn't mean we're going to necessarily change social systems and change the climate, although I think we can be very proactive. We'll talk about that in a minute, too. But it will change who we are. So he said, though the world may not shift into the state of consciousness as fast as we do, if we stay in that consciousness of oneness, things in our life will change. So basically, the idea that brought me alive, that changed my life, was the idea of the power of oneness. Just that one simple idea will change your life. There is no other ever. So there starts to become an awareness as you're going through life. When am I experiencing life as other? When am I experiencing that there's something other than God showing up in this conversation? That's showing up in, when am I in that place of duality, and when am I in the place of oneness? And what is amazing is when we continue to we get to choose. I don't have to choose that. Reading books and hearing lectures, it's just a reminder. So that idea brought me alive, but then I needed to get it reinforced. So all the different books I was reading and hearing thoughts, it was just reinforcing, there's only one. And that was a choice that I made over and over, day after day, and my whole life started shifting. The thing I noticed the most was fear started dropping away. The fear that other things had power over me, and that my life, at any moment, this thing that I couldn't even define. And I didn't grow up, by the way, with anything about sin, never heard about it, my devil, none of that existed in my life. But still, there's fear. We're living in an atmosphere where there's duality, there's fear. I watch the world news every night. That's fear enough. So I had to turn my attention. We talk about turning our attention away from duality, from two-ness and moving into oneness. And healing starts to happen. So that's the power of an idea. So as you think about the books that have transformed your life, the 3 to 5 books that have really had an impact on your life, what were those main ideas that impacted you? Because we're all unique. So I was thinking about different qualities, and I could think of examples of different people activating prosperity, health, relationship. I mean, there are different qualities of the divine, that beauty. And I can think of very specific people for each one of those, because we are all uniquely drawn to an idea that excites us, that brings us alive, and that we want to activate in our life and bring it alive. So as you're looking at the 3 top books that have impacted you, was it books about consciousness, expanding into your state of oneness? Was it about knowing abundance? If you stay with, so here's the idea. Here's the understanding. At this causal level, it's an idea. There's no form. There's no form. There's no, not only physical form, there's not even energy. You can't see it. So there's no limitation to it. So any idea, abundance, there's no limit to abundance. There's limited resources maybe down here, but not at the realm of ideas. Think about being an author of a book. You can write anything. You are absolutely free to write anything. That divine idea is unlimited. The idea of an abundance where there is no poverty. You don't have to have abundance to overcome poverty. There is no poverty. There's only this one power and this one presence, this causal body, and it is always good. It is always for us. It is always saying yes to us. So there's an abundance, there is a health, there is a joy, there is a wisdom, there is a creativity. What are those things that excite you? And if you hold to that idea in your heart over and over throughout your day and throughout your weeks. I used to sing songs about it. I would just everything was cultivating. It starts to show up in your world. There's just no way to hold that causal, first cause idea and not have it start showing up in our world. Now, sometimes we mistake it and we say we created it. We say it's the law of manifestation. We didn't create it humanly. We aligned ourselves with it. It already exists. I am not making this up. I'm aligning with that which already exists. So there are many examples. I think of Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis, who's been a minister forever up in she's actually had several ministries. And she was a minister long before when I was in ministerial school. So she's been around a long time, and prosperity's always been her thing. I remember coming to our classes talking about prosperity. It's 20 years later, she's still talking about prosperity, and it is beautiful. I mean, she radiates it, and not only for herself, she's what she's doing for our organization, for other ministers. She's like, you're prosperous. It hurts her to see people struggling with finances, because I know who you really are. I will do anything I can to support you. She supports other centers. She lives that. That's the thing that brings her alive. That's her divine quality. I know people who get, I'm just going to go to one that maybe some of you already know. I've talked about it before, but when we connect with these, it always brings awe. So for me, one of the people that bring awe to me is Myrtle Fillmore, who was one of the co-founders of Unity. Unity, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is different than Unitarian. Unity is also a New Thought church. It's actually before Centers for Spiritual Living. It was started in the late 1800s by Myrtle and Charles Fillmore. What is fascinating about Myrtle and Charles Fillmore is that they lived in the Old West. Charles Fillmore grew up in a log cabin a mile away from an Indian reservation. Myrtle Fillmore actually was from the East Coast, but she came out west. When I clued in on this is when I first read a book on a biography about the Fillmores, and then I followed it by reading a book about Doc Holliday, which was superb, by the way. But I realized, as I was reading the Doc Holliday, I'm like, wait, this is the exact same period that the Fillmores lived in the exact same locations. They were crossing the exact same city lines, and they lived in 2 totally different universes. So when you watch old Westerns with Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday had tuberculosis, by the way. So he came out west because he was told the weather out west was going to be better for his tuberculosis. They were living at the same time as where Myrtle and Charles Fillmore created Unity Village in Kansas City, Missouri. They were vegetarians. Think of the Old West. Beef, tough. They were vegetarians, and on their restaurant was vegetarian, and if you were going to eat on their property, you ate vegetarian. They were not listening to the world around them, right? They were listening to something much deeper. How they came about was Myrtle Fillmore had tuberculosis. There was no cure for tuberculosis in the late 1800s. She was no different than Doc Holliday and all the other people who were getting tuberculosis who eventually succumbed and died. She was learning about this power of thought, these power of ideas, and that the divine idea that there's no idea of disease, there's only perfect health. The divine idea always wants its highest good. There's only divine perfect health. So she took this idea of wholeness, of health, and she would spend hours. Now this is tuberculosis. You can't do this in 15 minutes. And that hit me because when I was at Unity, someone passed out the practice that she actually did. It was very intricate and involved and detailed and took a lot of time, and I just read it and was tired. And but if you have tuberculosis, you might do it. But she spent hours just knowing the wholeness and the perfection of every organ, the divine idea of health, of perfect health, as every organ and function. And she would go through her entire body slowly, deeply, profoundly contemplating the idea, the divine idea, the power of perfect health that was alive, even though, as every organ functioned, atom cell of her body, the circulation, everything, she just went through her entire body, slowly, meticulously, day in and day out. Her body was saying something else. We turn our attention our way, because this is all effects down here. That we can have secondary causation, but you're never going to have true new change. You're going to have true new life until you tap into that causal realm. And that's what she was doing. And she did. She cured herself of tuberculosis and lived into her 80s and co-created with Charles this extraordinary organization called Unity. This is available to all of us right now. This wholeness, this perfection, if we choose to spend time connecting with it. How to connect with it. Well, I'm going to go to the New Thought Way in a minute, but before I do, I want to also talk about the Eastern version of causal. How many of you here have heard of mindfulness meditation? Oh, see, so most people have heard it, almost everyone here. For those of you, there are some who didn't. Mindfulness meditation, it's where we recognize there's a witness to our life. So right now, you can look at your body, but realize you're not your body. There's a part of you that can witness your body. You're sitting in your chair, you have legs and arms, but you're not your legs and arms. They're a part of you, but they're not who you are. And then the mindfulness meditation will do the same thing with emotions. Recognize that you have emotions, but you're not your emotions. You have thoughts, but you're not your thoughts. For me, one of the easiest way to tap into that witness mode is going through my childhood, when I realized, when it was pointed out, that which it was witnessed myself as a child, if I go back and have a memory, that which is witnessing my childhood has never changed. The witness never gets old, it's never young, it's birthless, it's deathless. This causal body is beyond time. So we can constantly tap into this place. And the reason why I think that's very important is because when we talk about the causal realm, it can seem very far away, difficult to attain, but it's right here. It's closer to us than our very breath. This world of this power of ideas is right here. The I am that is witnessing you right now is the same I am that was witnessing you when you were a child, the same I am that was witnessing you when you were in your 20s. It's the same I am that has been witnessing the Big Bang and all life as it's been unfolding. It is always there. It is always witnessing life and creation as it's arising moment to moment. And the more we start to identify with that I am, we become free of identifying ourselves with all this personality stuff, all our habit patterns. All the things that we say, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Often our identities that we're is very small, very limited. We start identifying and experiencing that witness. Suddenly we become freer. This doesn't own me anymore. We're moving into empowerment. I'm not owned by this. It's part of my experience, yes. We don't want to go into denial. It is part of my experience, but it's not who I am. Who I am is, all of us, is this causal self. So mindfulness meditation, and for those of you who have never heard of it, you can Google it. It's everywhere. It's like a multi-billion-dollar business right now. It's everywhere. Seriously, it's in police officers are using it. They're using it with children. They're using it with people in jail. I mean, because it's so effective to start shifting reality. So it's a powerful meditation practice to start breaking us free from habit patterns. So in terms of spiritual practice, mindfulness meditation is a wonderful way to start moving into that causal realm, that it's right here. It's part of who we are. It's one of our three bodies: causal, subtle, physical. And I want to also talk about, because I love, one of the things I like about New Thought, because I tend to be like a lot of people in New Thought, is the leaders of the New Thought teachings, Ernest Holmes, the Fillmores, Joel Goldsmith, the way they moved, New Thought is all about this causal realm. We think it's about the law, but it's really about the causal realm. The law doesn't really work effectively until we really know the causal realm. And the way they really connect with that causal realm was through contemplation. They would take an idea, as I was saying earlier, that Joel Goldsmith took the idea of power, and first he started with, well, here's how human beings throughout history have used power. This is how we've looked at power. This is how metaphysicians, mental scientists look at power. What is spiritual power? And he just took it deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think I'm in Ernest Holmes, hours. I remember him talking at one point, he was contemplating just oneness, and he said up all night. Now, oneness is not a very interesting or stimulating idea, but he spent all night with it. Well, what would that be? You start talking about, well, is this one or that one? You just keep going into it, and it takes you deeper and deeper beyond our human thought. And that's what takes us to causal, to that I am present, that witness present. It's going to reveal things to us that we can't use in words, because the ideas actually aren't really words. It's a knowing. All of you know what it means to when you know something. When you have that intuitive, I just know. You can't articulate it because it's beyond words. That's what starts to happen as we hold these ideas. We start tapping into a truth that is so powerful. It's the whole idea behind Zen koans. Zen koans make no sense until you just be with it, until you move into that causal realm and there becomes a shift. And it's not words because that's form, but you know what that Zen koan means. I think of Joseph Chilton Pierce. He did a lot of work with children. He's the one who really brought the whole natural birth back to the United States in the 70s. And he always looks at, he wrote a book called The Biology of Transcendence. Well, actually, he wrote a lot of great books. And one of the things he was looking at was play. He said, every child, no matter when they were born, thousands of years ago to today, in all cultures at all time, they play. Every child inherently plays. And so he said, there's always a reason. There's always a biological reason for play. So he was trying to get the divine idea, the reason why everybody plays, why that's so important, why that shows up so consistently. And so he was reading, he said he had all these books about play out, and he's writing all these notes, and he's working, and so his mind's going. This is contemplation. He's contemplating play. He's reading everything he can about play. And he finally gets to this point where he just has read everything, thought every thought he could possibly think, and he's done. He's just like, he can't get to an answer. And that moment, when he has completely exhausted his brain, pop, he's out into the cosmos, he's the ball, and he experiences the divine presence throwing him back and forth across the cosmos in pure joy and delight, in the pure beingness of play. That's an answer you can't get from Googling it. I was thinking about, as I've been thinking about Fillmore and Ernest Holmes and Goldsmith and these long hours. They all say it. Every one of them say they would spend hours contemplating. And I thought, that impacts me more now because I said, if I started contemplating, I would start Googling pretty quickly. But Googling is just information. Information is never going to get us to the causal realm. So ideas are not are not information. We want to be really clear. Ideas are taking us to a profound place that will carry us, that will heal us the moment we touch it. The moment we touch it, something shifts. And I believe that that's what's happened with the books that you've read. That the moment you read something and it shifted you. If you read a book and you thought it was really good, but it did not change your life, that you did not start living differently because you read the book, that is not a book that has changed you. That's not a book of an idea, a divine idea. It's just a really cool thought that you had. The books that will change us, the ideas that will change us are causal ideas. They touch us at our divine being, behind our human personality, beyond all the patterns of the people around us. It's hitting something that is eternal and ever-present. And the moment that eternal presence within us has been touched, we cannot stay the same. The power of ideas. So my invitation this week, it's sort of connected with that. Even as I've asked the question, what are the 3 to 5 books that have had the most profound impact on your spiritual journey? I remember from previous times I've asked this community how long you've been on the spiritual journey, and there's a lot of people here who've been on the spiritual journey for quite some time. So the books that originally, like I used Joel Goldsmith as an example, the books that originally excited you, that changed your life, we give thanks for them, but you might be much further along. So as much as I love Joel Goldsmith, The Thunder of Silence, as much as it impacted me exactly when I needed it to impact me, even though I go back and read parts of it, it doesn't have the same impact. What are the books today? What are the books that are new ideas that are bringing new life to you? Because we all need to be connecting with ideas that are expanding and evolving. Spirit is ever evolving in form. This is a creative process that's happening all of the time. And if we've decided, I know the answers already, I already know what I think, so I don't need to tap into any new ideas, for me, that's sort of, we can take rests. But if we've been resting for a while, it's kind of like death. Because this whole world is about creating new ideas. So my inquiry to you is, what is the books you're reading now that are bringing new ideas into your life, that are not just interesting, not just cool new information that you can add on to old ideas that you've had, but are you reading a book, just at least one book? Because sometimes it's hard to find. You've been on the journey for a long time. It's hard. But it's there. There's a million authors out there. There's a million speakers out there. There are new ideas that are calling you forth even now, that are calling forth a new you into being. Not to leave the old being, but to expand the being that you are now. Last week I was talking about creating a covenant, an agreement with your divine self, your higher self, to begin with always meditation. We were talking about meditation last week, committing to your higher self and meditation where we're connecting with the essence of our being. And today I'm inviting you to look at ideas, to take time to, books aren't just mental mind, I won't go where sorry. They're living reality. Ideas are what propels all of us, individually and collectively, forward. What is the book of a new idea that you are reading now that is bringing you alive, that you're just like, wow? And knowing that many of you are on the journey, there may not be that for you right now. So my invitation then is to open yourself up and ask. There's always this divine idea. It's right here, this I am witness self. Ask. I want to expand. I'm ready for something new to be revealed, to learn, to change my life again. Maybe not as drastically as the first time, but to continue to evolve, to awaken, to become more a spiritual expressive being on the planet. What is that book for me right now? So if there's one idea or two, the 2 ideas I would love you to walk away today with is just the power. I love that word power, the power. Because when you have that power, there's nothing opposing it. When we really get the power, there's nothing opposing it. There's only one, the power of oneness. If we could just walk away with just that one idea, because that never stops, it never begins, and it covers everything: abundance, prosperity, joy, harmony, health, relationship. It will heal every area in your life if you continue to work with that one idea, the power of oneness. It's a beautiful idea of the causal realm. Because this is all part of that oneness. We're going to continue to go on. It'll get easier and easier because it'll be more tangible. We're still in the untangible. And the second idea is, what is the book? Or it doesn't have to be a book. Lecturer, author, speaker. Who's articulating a new idea to me that I need to hear in my life right now? And that I'm willing to really allow this new idea to animate me in a way that I've never been animated before. To allow, even I just see Jim and Katya, they have a new little grandchild, Olivia, and I saw this beautiful little picture of her right before service. But we're all that new life, every moment of every day. The new idea is new life. We're all that baby infant in some area. What's the new idea that you're allowing to animate your life? And sometimes I resist, so I just want to say that too. And I don't think I clearly knew it as well until just recently. So I read a beautiful passage from Yogananda's People's Eternal Quest. And he said, don't get so attached to your personality. We are so much more capable of many things. He said, I've been a cook, and he loved cooking. I've been a musician. I've been a party planner. I've been a guru. I don't know, he said all these things. And I know, having read his life, he did do all those things. And not only did he do all those things, he made people in his community do that. There was this great story of this woman who was in his community. And he said, we have this broken down car. Can you please go fix it? And she said, you're talking to me? She goes, I don't know anything about cars. Oh, well, you'll find out. Just keep tapping into spirit, and you'll start getting answers, and you'll get the resources. She goes, well, I'll go, get someone else to do it. No, I want you to do it. I want you to get your hands dirty, go into that car, ask and learn how to become a mechanic. And she tells the story of she amazed herself. She could do it. And I think those stories are really cool. And then Jack and I was saying ideas come before an action. Last fall, I was on the treadmill listening to Rip Esselstyn talk about plant-strong diet, and the more I'm listening to him, I'm like, this is great, I really want to do this. And then last week it started, the program. Sometimes it's not easy. But I'm willing to persevere in this new idea, plant-strong whole food. But it was great because I realized I can talk about it, but when a new idea comes up that is very different from how the whole eating, wow, no oil, it's crazy. But it's good. Jack was so great. He was sitting there yesterday. He goes, I'm just so happy. He did a whole week of it. He did it much better than I did. Just changing ourselves with food, it's a new idea. So I just to say, I'm with you. New ideas are not always easy, but they're possible. So notice when you say, I can't do something because that's not who I am. Right? So the books are going to, a book, in our case, the book for me is not a spiritual book. It's about how to eat differently. It's a new idea. All right, so we clear power of oneness, new ideas. Your commitment to yourself, this covenant with your higher self to become more than you've ever been before, than you were last week, than we were for the decade of 2010. We have a new decade, new life. Let's pray. And it's fun, kind of. How great and glorious it is that we get to begin in our prayer not begging or beseeching or hoping something is true, but standing in the reality that we know that this divine power power, this divine presence is all that life is. It was before all time and space, and it birthed all time and space, and it is all time and space. It is the fulfillment of all time and space and returns to itself day in and day out. And that this infinite oceanic presence, which we can never hold on to with one thought, we can never hold on to it with our human self. And yet there is that within us that knows that it knows that it knows. There is that presence and that power that is even now witnessing itself as we collectively sit in our chairs and stand on stage. This collective presence that feels this prayer that is being spoken and yet transcends every word that is spoken. It already is. It already is magnificent. It already is whole, perfect, and complete. It is already perfect health. It is already abundance. It is already joy. It is already wisdom. That this isn't something we're hoping to make happen. It is the truth. And it is the truth of each and every one of us. Each and every one of us is a divine idea made and transformed into form. We are the living reality, the living idea of the divine. Today we give thanks to connect with this internal essence that is the source and the power of our life. That it is the source and power of our body temple, of our emotional temple, of our mental temple. It is the source and sustenance of our relationships, of our work life, of how we show up as citizens on this planet. It all arises within us right in this moment. We know that God and I are one. The divine presence and I are one. There is no separation. There is no other. There is nothing opposing this presence. There is not two. There is one. And today we stand in the power of that collective realization that we are that one now. That as we look to our right and to our left, in front and behind, we see the oneness of all life. As we move forward into our day, into time, into space, into the unfolding of our day, we see and feel and experience and hear only this one power and this one presence because we choose it. We choose to see that. We choose to see that which is already there. We choose to see the divine reality that is always existing. We say yes, we say yes, we say yes, and miracles become a way of life. Miracles become a way of being. Deep and abiding love, healing and health, prosperity, relationships, all those areas where we may feel separation from the divine idea. Today we'd hold that divine idea in the midst of it all. It is more powerful. It is the only power. It's not more powerful. It's the only power that we allow as the animating energy and expression of who we are. Only one power. We stand in it. We stand strong in it, in our hearts, in our bodies, and in our souls. And we are the living miracle. For all of God's infinite good that can never be stopped or limited ever. We just say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, causal self. Thank you, I am that I am. Thank you for this divine choice to see and know you here and now and to allow you to its full power in every area of our life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We release this word into the law of life, knowing that as this word has been consciously recognized, accepted, it is fulfilled here and now. It is done. And together we release this word, we let it be, and we say together, and so